Hey everyone, it's me, Katie-Beth again. So, if you're into 3D printing really at any stage, beginning or more advanced, at some time you have or are planning to make the Mythic Mugs. And I really like them so much. However, they did leave me wishing that I could just pour liquid straight into them instead of using them as a can holder. Basically, I want to use the beer stein as a beer stein and not just a can holder to hold my can. Which really got me thinking, how can I make this safe to drink directly out of? And if you haven't already read about it or heard about it, for the most part, 3D printing is not safe to eat out of or drink out of, mainly because the layering process leaves little spots for bacteria and grossness to get in there and grow, and I guess has made people sick in the past. Now, smoothing out the layers is supposed to help a bit, but to actually seal out the germs, you really need a sealant layer or more over the filament layers so that nothing can get inside between the layers. And the only food-safe way that I could find on the internet to use to do this is resin epoxy, and not just any resin epoxy. There's really only one brand that does the claiming to be food-safe, FDA approved, and it's the art resin. Now, backing up a little bit, Gryffindorable Fox, one of the commenters on the first Mythic Mugs video I made, had written into me months ago about the idea of using resin epoxy to do this. But before I had found the art resin brand, in my head, and according to my past research, resin epoxy is a dangerous chemical and not safe to have in or around your mouth, especially for long periods of time. So you don't want to drink sitting in it. However, since then, according to the internet, I have come to the understanding that most epoxy is pretty safe once it is completely hardened and set, which varies on the brand and type of epoxy, or resin epoxy. However, the art resin brand is the only epoxy brand I could find that actually claims to be FDA safe and approved. Its websites say that it's safe to use to coat plates and cups, but it does discourage the use of epoxy on the inside of cups, not because it's chemically unsafe, but because of the fact that people want to pour hot beverages into it, which could mess up the chemical compound of it. And art resin says never to put water hotter than 120 degrees in or on it. So all of this kind of implied to me that it is safe to coat the inside of your cups, just not putting hot stuff in it to mess it up. Which is just fine with me because the purpose that I want it is to put cold drinks in, nothing hot at all. So the next question I had before jumping into this project was, how do I wash them? Well, the art resin site says that to clean it, you use glass cleaner because you treat it like glass, which I'm not going to do for my food, but it also says you can use dish soap and water that's cooler than 120 degrees, which for my hands is fine. I feel fine with less than 120 degree water with soap washing my stuff. So while the Mythic Mugs are pretty much my favorite type of mug cup that you can print, for this project I did not limit myself to just Mythic Mugs. I also used some Trader Sam's zombie type of mugs. I was thinking it should be really cool for ice cream, like an ice cream sundae out of his head. And then I also used Baby Yoda. And this is stuff that I just took different files from Thingiverse and made them differently. Like I made this into a can cup holder. And then using also different files, I also made these mugs here. Mugs can holders. But as you can see, I did run into some problems with using the epoxy for this project. So problem number one I had, how to spread the epoxy. Initially, I was using just a paintbrush, but that really makes a paintbrush is one-time use only, and you really need to make more than one layer on these. So then I moved on to a silicone paintbrush, which I don't know where it is right now, but I'll put a clip of it in there. So while the silicone paintbrush didn't quite have a flat edge, I liked it a lot because I didn't have to keep washing it out and hoping that it didn't dry too hard. It actually, you can just leave the silicone or the epoxy on there and then just peel it off once it's dry. So that was pretty great. Number 2, drying issues. Because I wasn't using a cup spinner, since I was coating the inside, I didn't want to try and shove something in there because that's how cup spinners work. But I did figure out that I could probably rig something to just hold the outside of the cup and keep spinning it. However, it seemed like so much work, and because I want to do everything at once, I started coating the outside and the inside at one time and just letting it sit. Which then also led me to another drying issue, that when I was doing that, it was just drying with, let's see, like this type of thing. This one I dried upside down. But when I have it like this drying, all the epoxy that drains off just kind of drains off and sticks onto it. So you end up with things like this. So either on the bottom, you can see on the zombie heads, I kind of just trimmed it down, and I liked that it just made it a more solid base, I felt like. But for the cups and mugs, it just wasn't really what I wanted for that. So one of the things you have to think about when using the epoxy resin to coat it is that you will get this type of thing. And see, it did make a larger rim all the way around it, which I'm going to have to trim down and sand down and then put another layer of epoxy over it. And again, with drying unevenly, see, that one pretty much dried pretty evenly in there. There is a bit of an air bubble, which I'll need to cover later. And to get the air bubbles out, you're supposed to use the heat gun to like pop the air bubble. I obviously didn't do it on this one because there's that air bubble. But similarly, just like how the epoxy pools on the bottom if you let it dry there, it also pools on the bottom of inside the cup. And as you can see on this one, I think I was just doing a layer to coat right here because I had to sand it down. And so the stuff just dripped down to the bottom, and then the epoxy dried like this. And since I can't really get in there to sand it down too well, I'm really just going to have to pour another layer of epoxy in there to even that out. Which, if you're using the Mythic Mugs pattern, it's really going to affect where it lies. So these cups are made for monsters, basically. Ooh. Oh, okay, running into another problem that I had. But again, the cups are made for the monsters at this size, and if you keep making the bottom higher, it's going to affect the design of where the can stays, if you want to continue to use it as a can. The other problem, which you just saw, is because I keep making the inside thicker with more layers, the cans that it's made for become super tight in there. And I actually noticed it when I tried first with my Baby Yoda ones, and I did end up having to sand them down a lot to be able to fit a can back in there again. Because, well, I do like that if everything works, I should be able to drink directly out of these. I did like the idea of them being can holders. So I wanted to keep that availability to do that still in here. Which, a possible solution I thought of for this problem is to maybe, in the design software, to make the cups a little bigger. Just a few percentages bigger, so that the cup itself would pretty much stay the same size, maybe a little bigger, which isn't horrible, but it would make the inside wider, so if you do have more layers making it thicker, a can should still be able to fit in there decently. So that was one issue I ran into with epoxying the inside, or another issue actually. There was kind of a lot, wasn't there? And another issue that I had with it, I'll show you here, like this, how the epoxy dried bumpy on the bottom, and I'm going to have to go back over it. On the inside, because the epoxy just runs down, it didn't dry smoothly. So you can see there's still streaks. And I have tried to sand them down and then re-epoxy it, but it still just kind of dries streaky because it's just sitting there and folding or streaking however it wants to. Because it's not in a cup spinner, it's not evenly spinning around until it all dries. So in the future, I may want to revisit the cup spinning thing again. And speaking about how they dry funny, on this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera. Looks like I had left it there to dry, stuff ran off, the excess went kind of underneath, and as you can see, kind of pushed everything up or filled it in. Everything except these little spots So these are uneven. So to make this a decent cup, I'm going to have to go back again and fill this hole in with epoxy. Or just sand down the rest of it. I guess I've got two options. Because this is already epoxy, just now there's a big thick layer over it making this little hole weird. The last main issue I noticed with coating everything with resin epoxy is that it does make it scratchable. It's not on a ton of my stuff, but these things I kind of just put all in a bin together, and some of them started getting a little scratched, and the scratches show up like white in the resin. Per my online research, you can kind of sand this down and then put another little layer of epoxy over it, and it should just seal it up and you won't even know it's there. But just know that that is an issue, that it may start showing scratches. Also, for the safety of all this, make sure you know the drying and curing time of your epoxy. Again, art resin is the only one that I found that's FDA approved for food safety, and it does say it takes about 72 hours to fully cure. So if you're making Christmas gifts or any type of gift for yourself, make sure you have at least, I think it's like 3 days to dry before actually drinking or eating out of any of the stuff you're coating with this. If you're still watching, thank you for still being here with me. It was kind of a long process trying to figure out how to resin epoxy these to make them food safe. As you can tell from this video, I'm still working on it. If you out there manage to figure out a better way to seal these and make them food safe, please tell me. And on the other side, if you see things and know exactly what I did wrong and how to fix it, feel free to comment that below also. I'm very sure there are a lot of things I've done wrong with these, and I'm still working on fixing them. So if you have any helpful hints, I'm more than happy to receive those. Again, still working on how to do this exactly, but it has gotten ideas stirred up in here, and the more I try it, I feel like the better I'm gonna get at it. Even if this idea I had was a horrible idea, and in which case, if it is, I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of comments telling me how horrible it is. Which I'm okay with. Don't feel bad about it. If it's a horrible idea, it's a horrible idea. But I'm hoping that at least maybe it got some ideas stirring in your head as well. Because it definitely has in mine. I am glad I tried this. I'm going to keep trying it because I really like the idea. I feel like it's just technique that I need to start working on more. I also really enjoy mixing my own mugs in the different mixing softwares. And I really like the idea of how customizable 3D printing is. It's taking me a while to learn how to change different things, but I'm starting to get the hang of it, and I'm really enjoying it. If you're still watching, wow! Thank you! Thank you for still being here. And if you're already subscribed to this channel, thank you so much. And if not, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button down below. I'm working on sharing a lot more of my 3D printing experiences and experiments. On this channel, we also do a lot of adventuring, crafting, reviews, and just the random stuff that percolates up in here and that I need to get out and share with everyone. Well, again, thank you all for being here with me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Yeah, that's it. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone. Thanks. If you have any helpful which is just fine for me.